A few weeks ago, I made a tier list video ranking every Paladins champion by how much fun they are to play, and we're back at it again today with maps. I'll be ranking every map in Paladins based on how much fun I think they are to play on, and of course this is going to be a highly subjective tier list, so I want you to go into the comment section right now and tell me which map is your most favorite and least favorite to play on. And while you're down there, I don't ask this pretty much ever at the start of my videos, but please consider subscribing. Most people who watch my channel are not subscribed, and we've kind of hit a crawl when it comes to gaining subscribers, and I would really appreciate it if you would just subscribe. It would be just an absolutely amazing thing if we could hit 60k by the end of the year, and if you want to help me reach that goal, then please just hit that red button down below. It's free, and it helps out a ton. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and get straight into the video. Alright, so let's get things started with the D tier. Now, just like in my last tier list video, these are actually ranked within the tiers themselves, so the maps on the left are better than the maps on the right. And that leaves the absolute worst map in the game being Marauder's Port. We also have Primal Court, Fish Market, Ice Mines, and Frozen Guard. And all of these maps are genuinely just awful. I never really have fun playing on these maps, and all of them have just one or two things that really make them stand out as being especially bad to play on. When it comes to Marauder's Port, first of all, it's not that great looking of a map, and of course that ultimately doesn't mean a lot when it comes to the gameplay, but it is still just something to point out. But also it has a horrible two-tier design, where, yeah, you kind of just either have to fight on the top or on the bottom. It's not really that easy to get to either the top floor or the bottom floor, depending on the champion that you're playing. A lot of champions in this game don't have vertical mobility, and so it makes it really rough to play on this map. And it's not really that much fun to play on if you're a champion with vertical mobility either, because most of the bottom floor has a giant ceiling over it that makes it really hard to move around in. But if you're on the top floor, it's kind of hard to deal with people on the bottom floor unless they're in the center of the point. It's just not a very well designed map, and to top it all off, the sound system in Paladins is actually, well, surprise, pretty horrible. And so directional audio doesn't really work on this map how it's supposed to. If you hear something to your right, you can't tell if it's above or beneath you without just straight up looking to your right. And so sound cues don't really work as reliably on this map as they do on other maps, which don't have this weird two-tiered system. It also makes it really hard to heal on this map because there are only a select few healers that can heal through walls, and if you're on the bottom floor, you basically can't heal people on the top floor, and vice versa. So it's a really bad map, and if it was deleted from the game, honestly, I would not be sad. Now, Primal Court is a lot more straightforward. It's just the smallest map in the game, and because it's the smallest map in the game, it is one of the worst. Primal Court either goes one of two ways. Either Team 1 stomps Team 2, or Team 2 stomps Team 1, and that's because it is stupendously easy to spawn camp on this map. The objective is right outside the spawn doors, and so if one team gets a leg up on the other team, they can basically rule the entire match, and there's not really any way to recover. It's just not very great. It's too small for this game, and honestly, if it were made a bit bigger, it would be a better map. But yeah, it's just too small to be any good. Fish Market is a horrible map, and I think most people will agree. It's a sniper's heaven, and snipers are not that much fun to play against. It's also just a really poorly designed map because it's asymmetrical. The docks are more heavily skewed towards Team 2's side of the map than Team 1's side of the map, because there's a long bit that goes all the way out into the ocean that, yeah, starts from Team 2's side instead of down the middle for whatever reason. Horrible map design. But also the rooftop collisions are really bad. There are invisible walls that jut out from the pointy bits of rooftops that make it really counterintuitive to try and fly around them, and you often get stuck on them as characters like Seven, Eevee, Drogos, etc. And so that also makes the map feel really bad to play on. And the final area where you push from, that little hillside area, it's just not a fun point to push. Whether you're defending or whether you're pushing, it's just awkward either way around, and it's just a really bad map. Ice Mines is a map that is simply way too congested. You pretty much are forced to pick a blaster here if you want to win, and while blasters certainly are fun, it kind of just creates a pretty stale meta where you pick Dredge, Betty, Bomb King, Willow, and then if the enemy team also has Bomb King, Dredge, Betty, etc., yeah, it's kind of just a stalemate. It's also one of the hardest maps to push on in the game, which means most matches go 3-3, and yeah, it's just not that great, but at least it's a little bit more bearable to play on than the others. And then there's Frozen Guard, which it's a very pretty map, don't get me wrong, but it feels awful to play on. It's just really, really hard to flank on this map, because when you're pushing or defending, there's pretty much just a tight, congested hallway where you can only push from one of like 3 different areas. You can push far left, you can push up the middle, which has so many sightlines for people to see you coming, or you push from the tight, congested barn area. It's just, it's not that much fun to flank on. And also, the bridge area above the center lane where the point goes down, or where the payload goes down, you can't fly over that. Which, when you compare it to pretty much every other map in this game that has similar bridge areas or similar buildings, you can fly over that on other maps, but you can't do it on Frozen Guard, and it makes it feel so awful to play on if you're playing someone who can use vertical mobility. It kind of shuts down smart usage of the map by characters who can actually use mobility, and it's just really, really awful for that regard as well. So definitely a D tier map, just like the rest. Next up, we have the C tier. Now, this is the tier that has maps that are still pretty bad, but not quite as bad as the D tier. And to kick things off, we have Trade District. Now, this is the most recently reworked map in the game, and it does look absolutely phenomenal. There are some issues on it, like the Forge having no doors, and there being just a little bit too many windows, but aside from that, it is very pretty. However, the map layout leaves much to be desired. Now, this is both a King of the Hill and a Team Deathmatch map, and King of the Hill is at least a little bit more bearable, but both game modes share the same problem on this map. There are many, many instances where you just get a stalemate happening, where you have 2 teams in 2 different zones of the map, and neither team really can push the other team. This map has a lot of choke points, and it creates so much congestion that 2 evenly matched teams really struggle to push each other and actually make stuff happen on this map, and it just turns into long stalemates. I have only had a few long team deathmatch games that ended up going into overtime or ended up taking like 10 minutes and were really, really close, and almost all of them were on Trade District because it is so hard to push on this map. And so because of that, this map goes in C tier. Next up, we have Shattered Desert and Frog Isle, which are 2 extremely open maps. Frog Isle is another sniper's haven, and it's also really hard to flank on because you can see people coming from a mile away on this map. And so it's just not really the best as someone who enjoys trying to flank around and, you know, get a different angle on people. It's kind of rough to do that, and it feels like you're kind of forced into long-range fights on this map. And Shattered Desert is, it's just kind of mid. There's not much good to say about this map. There's not much bad to say about it either, to be totally honest. I wish you could use the high grounds on this map, but they're all covered in this blue fire that will kill you if you try to stand on it. So yeah, it kind of makes it restrictive in that regard, but yeah, it's just, I don't really care about this map, honestly, so it goes in C for don't care. And next up we have Warder's Gate, which is the epitome of a mid map. It got a rework somewhat recently, and it's an interesting rework. They certainly improved the texture quality and the clipping issues of the first map, and they also did some layout changes, which people have mixed opinions about. Some people miss the crystals, others think it's a good thing that they're gone, they were extremely buggy. But either way, it's just not a very interesting map to play on. A lot of the collisions do feel extremely weird, especially with like the foliage and the leaves and stuff like that. I do appreciate that they made it so you can fly over a bunch of the bridges on this map like they should do with Frozen Guard, but it's ultimately just a map that I don't really care about. And plus, the pristine side of the map, the side that's not ruined, does look extremely bland, so I have to dock points for that as well. And then last we get to Dragon Arena, which is, it's a decent TDM map. Like, again, it's just a map I don't really have much of an opinion on. Like, it's alright. It could be better, could be worse. I've had some fun stuff happen on this map, I've had some bad stuff happen on this map. It's just, it's alright. I mean, it's top of C tier, it's nothing super special. And now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the B tier, which is the average tier. These are maps that are pretty fun to play on, but don't stand out as being super, super top tier. And we're just gonna get things started with the most controversial placement on this list. I can already tell, just right off the bat, it's Timbermill. Why is Timbermill in B tier? I'm going to have so many angry comments about that. Timbermill is a map that a lot of people hate. There's even someone named I Hate Timbermill, and yeah, it's a map that has been extremely unpopular. However, in my opinion, it does have its place as a fun map to play extremely mobile champions on. So champions like Seven, Vora, Eevee, Ruckus, they all can have a blast on this map. Mave too. If you enjoy high mobility and swinging through trees and just zooming around, this is actually a pretty decent playground for that. And also the map looks absolutely beautiful. Like, even if you hate the layout of this map, you can't deny they did a really good job texturing it and making it look like an absolutely amazing map. Now, I do agree that champions that basically have no mobility and no range like Sky or Tyra are gonna suck on this map. But just don't pick those champions here. Like, pick someone who actually has decent mobility and you'll do great. Snipers, long-range champions, they all do excellent here too. And I've had decent amounts of fun on this map. Now, I'm not going to put it anywhere higher than B tier because honestly, I'd have people unsubscribing left and right for that. But I have enough fun on this map to place it in B tier, and I will die on this hill. Next up, we have two Onslaught maps, Snowfall Junction and Foreman's Rise. These both are decently fun maps to play on, and I honestly don't really have much of a problem with either of them. I mean, I enjoy my matches on these maps, and there's some fun things you can do, especially on Snowfall Junction, flying up and over the rooftops and things like that. And yeah, I mean, they're pretty chill maps, honestly. Again, not really much of an opinion on them, but I do certainly like them more than the maps in C tier. Next up, we have Bazaar, which is... it's a map. It's one of the maps in Paladins. There are some rough things about this map for sure, like the texture quality on some of the things, like the collisions on the walls in particular, with abilities like Raise, Chain Heal that just go right through the wall, or Luna, which goes right through the wall and stuns you. That's frustrating, yeah. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't have some fun moments on this map. This is actually one of my favorite maps to tank on with characters like Barrick and Inara, because I can just hold down the point and have like a 25-minute long game where I am just brawling with the enemies left and right, and to me, that's decently fun. Now, I know that might sound hypocritical given that I said I don't like the long matches on Trade District, but it's two different types of dynamics. For Bazaar, it's fun for me to have a long tank brawl. On Trade District, I'm trying to play like Buck or Eevee or something, and I'm just not really able to push, and it's long and it's frustrating. So it's two different types of dynamics, and that's why I like long matches on Bazaar as opposed to Trade District, which, yeah, I mean, maybe there's some cognitive dissonance going on there. I don't know, but that's my opinion. Deal with it. And finally, at the top of B tier, we have Abyss, which is certainly an interesting team deathmatch map. It's actually a very unique setting in terms of Paladins because, well, it's in another dimension slash world slash thing, whatever the Abyss is. And so, really cool just for that alone, but also I really do enjoy the layout of this map. In particular, the thing that I enjoy the most about this map is the fact that you can actually go underneath a lot of the floors. And so there's an extra layer of verticality there that many other maps simply can't do at all, without being sort of unrealistic. But since the Abyss is an unrealistic place, it kind of makes sense. And yeah, you can fly under the floor with characters like Drogos, Imani, Eevee, and yeah, you can pull off some really, really wild plays with that. And so I really enjoy Abyss for that reason, and it goes top of B tier. And finally, we are in the A tier. Now, these are maps that are really well designed, and they are a blast to play on. Let's get things started with Stone Keep, which is actually a map that I would have put in S tier before the rework, but since the rework, I just find myself enjoying this map less and less. Now, of course, if we're just talking about the visuals alone, this is an absolutely stunning map. They nailed it with this rework. The towers make it feel grand, the extra scenery all around makes it feel like you're in this giant city, and it is so, so cool. However, I also feel like these increased visuals actually kind of hurt the gameplay a little bit. The old Stone Keep had muted colors and it didn't really have noisy textures. The bricks were subtle and it made it very easy to tell what was going on. But when you play on this new rework, especially with characters like Betty who are spamming all over the place, it's actually a lot harder to tell what's going on and see what's really happening, I feel. And I don't know if that's just me, but yeah, it feels a lot noisier and it feels just like there's so much more going on. It feels really busy visually, especially with all the contrasting lanterns and window lights and all that. I don't know, it's just a very, very busy map. And another issue with this map that came from the rework is actually that there are a lot worse collisions on this map now. There have been issues where like lantern hitboxes were too big, you could fall through the wall at one point and die, and there's still an issue with the curved wall where it kind of just feels really awkward to play around. It feels like it goes up a little bit too far in terms of the actual hitbox compared to the visual, and it's just a lot messier to play on compared to the old Stone Keep. Of course, the layout changes themselves are decently fine. You can't see through the stairs anymore, which, I mean, it does also kind of inhibit the clarity of the map a little bit, but at the same time, you can't ult with con through the stairs, which was just absolutely silly. The stairs in the church are nice, but I'm not sure if I agree with the stairs in front of spawn being removed, because that did make it very easy to get back up to spawn. Overall, the actual layout changes are probably the least problematic thing about this map, but those changes do prevent it from going into S. Next up, we have Magistrate's Archives, which is the first reworked Magistrate map in Paladins, and it looks absolutely phenomenal. Honestly, this is a really good looking map in terms of the theme, and also in terms of how well they executed just the Magistrate aesthetic in general. It looks really nice, well decorated, and I love all the abyssal elements that have touched this map as well. And it's also a really fun map to play on as far as Onslaught maps go. Ultimately, Onslaught for me isn't that much of a fun game mode compared to Siege, but it is still decently fun to play on this map. I never really find myself griping or complaining when I play on this map, as opposed to, well, you know, Primal Court, Marauder's Port. Those maps, nothing compared to Magistrate's Archives. After that, we have Jaguar Falls and Bright Marsh, two maps that are extremely fun to play on for pretty much most characters except for snipers, which is honestly a really good thing. These maps don't really punish you for not having mobility, but they also reward people who do have mobility and who know how to use the map to their advantage. You can fly over the rooftops on Bright Marsh, and you can teleport through the windows with some characters, but if you can't do that, that's absolutely fine. Characters like Tyra aren't really inhibited on this map either, and Jaguar Falls is much the same way. It's a very lateral map, meaning you aren't really hurt too much if you don't have vertical or horizontal mobility, but if you do have that, you can fly around the sides of the map, you can fly over all sorts of things, and it is a blast. And I really enjoy both of these maps for that reason in particular. And then at the top of A tier is the new map coming to Paladins a week from this video's release, Dawnforge. Now, this is a map I had a blast playtesting on the PTS. This is such a fun map to play on. It is an absolutely gorgeous map, first of all. It has the pyre aesthetic through and through. The orange and blue/purple contrast really well together. It's all bedazzled with gold. It looks absolutely amazing. And it's actually decently decorated too, unlike Warder's Gate. But yeah, in terms of the actual gameplay, I mean, this is such a well-designed map. It has unique map elements that we don't have on any other map in Paladins. We have the Forge, which is a hammer that you can actually crush people underneath if you time your abilities well enough, like a Ceres Convergence, or a Khan ult, or even an Ashes Kinetic Burst can get someone killed with this thing. But you can also use the Forge as a form of dynamic cover, and you can also use it to get from the low ground to the high ground. It's got so many unique things all in one, and I really appreciate that design element. Also, there is the button, which you can press to completely change the course of a team fight, and it really creates a more dynamic point fight than just the boring old, oh, let's go to point and yes, let us stand on the high grounds and shoot, haha, because it literally summons the sun from the sky to start searing off the heads of the poor souls who stand on the objective. And it also summons walls that completely block off the high ground, so you actually can't really use the high ground to aim down on the point for a little bit. And it is so incredibly cool, and I really appreciate how this kind of makes point fights feel more unique. It's not just the same old as with every other map. You can really change the course of how the match goes by pressing the button. But also, even without these interactive elements, there is the design of the map itself, which is incredible. It's a very big map, not that easy to spawn camp on, and it's also so much fun to traverse. It doesn't feel too big to the point that it's like unbearable to cross, but there are plenty of different flank routes and different little cubbies and areas you can fight in, and if you have vertical mobility or high mobility in general, this map is so much fun to play on. You can fly over pretty much every wall on the map, and you can fly in and out and around and between all the different rooms. It is so much fun. And so this map easily deserves the top of A tier. And finally, we reach the S tier. Now, there are only 3 maps in S tier, and all 3 of them share pretty much the same thing in common. If you have good map knowledge and you're playing a character with mobility, you will do amazing. There are so many different things about these maps that make them unique and feel amazing to play on, but let's start off with the bottom of S tier, which is Ascension Peak. Now, this map, you can fly over literal mountains, which is amazing. You can fly around the side of the map, map, you can go pretty much wherever. And there are also a whole bunch of things that you can stand on if you know exactly how to use the map. So on Ascension Peak, you can stand in 2 of the windows on the side of the objective room. You can stand on pretty much every tree, including the middle branch of this tree, which you probably shouldn't be able to stand in, but it's been there for years and they haven't removed it, so I think it's an intended spot at this point. You can even stand on top of the mountains themselves if you're clever and play someone like Ruckus, who can actually get there pretty easily. It is just such a phenomenal map, because not only can you fly around, but you can stand on hidden areas that, yeah, you probably wouldn't think to stand on, but if you actually try and go there, well, hey, it turns out you actually can stand there, and you could use that to your advantage and ambush people from places that they would never expect. It is so much fun. Now, Splitstone Quarry is another phenomenal map with a lot of verticality to it, and it is a blast to play on. If you are playing someone like Drogoz or Mani, you can actually fly over the entire saw blade structure that covers the objective, which is just an absolute blast. I love doing that, just flying above it, attacking people from places they don't expect, but then they catch onto it, and so you've got to attack from different ways, but you can still kind of use it as cover. It is so much fun. You can also fly over the buildings that flank either side of the objective that serve as the high ground area, which is another really cool thing. Basically, if an element exists on this map, you can fly above it, and that is just such a good thing. It creates so many interesting and engaging opportunities to attack and defend from people, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I love maps that incorporate just ways for you to make your own flank routes, or ways for you to engage the enemies in just a million different ways, instead of just the same old, oh, you either attack from this lane, or this lane, or this lane. There are 3 standard choke points. Congratulations, here you go. No, Splitstone Quarry breaks those rules. It lets you just attack from so many different angles, and it is amazing. And then Serpent Beach is much the same way. You can fly over all the buildings on this map, except for like a few at the very tip top of the map. And yeah, it is amazing for that as well. And you can also use this map to kind of bounce from high ground to high ground with characters like Bomb King and Buck. So even characters without super high mobility can still take advantage of this map and do some pretty incredible things. And you can also fly around the side of the map with a character like Drogoz or Mani or Eevee again, and you can just have a clear vantage point to the enemy team's spawn. But it takes a lot of effort to get there, and yeah, it's so freaking cool. And there are also little cubby holes that you can kind of shoot through. Like, I've been killed before by someone flying up and shooting me through this little crack in the wall, which is just a really interesting attention to detail that is quite nice. There are some niche circumstances where that's useful, but when it's useful, oh boy, is it so cool. And yeah, the ultimate reason why all 3 of these maps are in S tier is just that they allow you to use map knowledge to your advantage and create your own flank routes, which you can use to surprise attack the enemies and just create a million different ways to engage. And I like that sort of creativity where you as the player can come up with your own flank routes and try and traverse the map in just all sorts of weird, wacky, zany, unique ways, and it rewards you by, well, letting you surprise attack people and just turn the tide of a battle by doing something wild. And that is so much fun to me. Really enjoy that, and I wish more maps incorporated that. You know, instead of Frozen Guard not letting you fly above the bridge, what if they did let you fly above the bridge? Well, all of a sudden, you have a new way to flank. You have a new way to try and turn the tide of the battle and do something cool. It's just, yeah, I wish more maps would do that, because these 3 maps all just shine as being perfect examples of letting the player take control and do just all sorts of crazy plays as a result of just having the freedom to fly around everything. It's so awesome. But anyways, that's going to be the end of this video. So do you agree with my list, or do you think a different map is actually the best map in Paladins? Make sure, again, to let me know in the comments section down below what your favorite and least favorite map in Paladins is. And while you're down there, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload from me. Also, I would really appreciate it if you would check out my Twitch channel and my Discord server, both of which are linked in the description down below. And if you want to buy crystals, the season pass, and more, please consider doing so at my Nexus, nexus.gg/AndrewChicken. You can buy pretty much everything I just mentioned there and support me in the process. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I will see you all next time. Peace out.